Hi, Maria. Hello. How are you doing?
Good morning. Do you know, I think I pushed the wrong button because I was in the session of Rosenberg.
It happens all the time.
I
haven't seen Luke yesterday. He went to the wrong building.
I opened the wrong door.
Yes, no problem. Now
so we are here. Hello, everybody. Elizabeth, Margot, Catalina, Bastien. I am checking for the presentators. Tobias, Joey, Lucia, you are here. Juan, Thais, Regina, Gabriela, who is looking, I think we are, Nestor is here. I like Alejandro and Nestor. Where are they? Someone is sleeping. Elizabeth, Tobias, listo. I need Alejandro and Nestor. And Ale is here. So I think that Nathan, Nora. Well, I think that we can start. Hello, everybody. Nice to meet you here. I have a very short presentation with a couple of words about the session. I'm very happily surprised for the number of presentations. I think that this is a great issue, a great topic for the Shallow Lake Congress. So I welcome you, and if I can share my presentation. Nestor is in another session now. I will call him when it is in turn, says Paula. Okay, thank you very much. Then we can start. So I will share my presentation now. Just a couple of slides to see you. Welcome to this session. Shallow lakes in agricultural landscapes, a topic that joined us here. I will read the words that I wrote for call you here. Say all around the world, shallow lakes and ponds on gentle plains are now surrounded by agricultural land use. The externalities of modern intensive crop and cattle activities impact on these water bodies with excess of fertilizer, pesticides, and siltation that can condemn them to hyper-eutrophication, deoxigenation, fish kills, or clogging. Big differences arise between landscapes where societies want and can regulate what humans do in the watershed and those where people's big economic needs threat water quality and ecosystem health. However, the current valorization of the services that these shallow lakes provide justify our attention, the development of restoration strategies and tools, and better protection policies. So what can we do about it? We are here, we are interchanging ideas, results, and that's a great first step. We have here 18 presentations in this session. It is a session very popular. We have authors from 30 countries, and we have works that proceed through field surveys, remote sensing, experiments, and models. So we will have 2 days for discuss these topics. Today is the day when we will listen Lucia Vera, with her work Impacts of Rice Hydroperiod Management on the Hydrology of a Shallow Mediterranean Lake during 2006 to 2020. She's from the University of Valencia in Spain. Then we will listen Margot Sepp, Catchment land cover and soil as predictors of organic carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus level in temperate lakes. She's from the Estonian University of Life Sciences. Third, Juan Curarello from Agronomy Faculty of the University of Buenos Aires in Argentina. His work is morphometry of littoral zone and its effect on light environment in shallow lakes within an agricultural landscape. Oops. Then Catalina Fixman from Buenos Aires, Argentina too, characterization of the vegetation belt and its ability to protect the shallow lakes on the Pampean landscape. After that, Regina Nobre, precipitation, landscape properties, and land use interactively affect water quality of tropical freshwaters. She is from the Universidad Federal de Rio Grande do Norte, Brazil. Alejandro Lopez, with his work Relationship between Land Use and Water Transparency in Shallow Lakes from a Wide Agricultural Landscape. He is from Buenos Aires University, Argentina. Then we will listen to Nestor Maceo, a work with Ismael Diaz, a spatial approach for decision-making process to manage eutrophication of shallow lakes. He is from the Universidad de la República, Uruguay. Then Elizabeth Gross from joint.
Oggi tiene la sessione, no? È in canottiera, ma è caldo dove lei? Oh.
Who is talking?
Please, Maria, ask everyone who is not going to present to turn off their microphones.
Yes, I think that Amancay asked you mute. I pushed down the microphone of Amancay. So I was presented is Elizabeth Gross, evaluating multiple stressors, effects on shallow lake aquatic systems, differential effects of pesticides, nitrates, and heat wave on primary producers and their consumers. She is working in a joint Germany and France, Université de Lorraine and Université de Toulouse, France. And finally for today, lake ecosystem models as support tools for managing shallow lakes, benefits and challenges from a Danish perspective. The author is Tobias Kuhlmann Andersen from the Department of Bioscience, Aarhus University, Denmark. So this is the schedule for today. These are the rules of the house that I wrote from Linda's session. For all of us, please mute your microphones and turn videos off until the question and answers of each work. The speakers, please be ready with your presentation open, but still not share. When I give you the screen, turn your microphones and cameras on for your brief presentation, just a couple of slides with the highlights of the work, and share your screen. After that, we will have the question and answer for each of them. And the audience, please submit your questions via Zoom chat, also orally if you prefer, but I think that is easier for us if we have the answers. Great. And also I will check until last minute the forum in the web page, in the platform. because I think that there is a lot of questions there. So let's start. I will finish to share my my screen, and let's start with the presentation of Lucia Vera. Please, Lucia. Open your mic.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Hello to everyone. Thank you, Maria. I am very excited for to be here. This is my first time in a conference, so I'm going to share my. Okay. Okay. Can you see the slides right now?
Now he started.
Yes. You see the slide? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I am of the University of Valencia. I am a PhD student, and I'm going to present very short the study that we are made right now. The impacts of right hydroperiod management on the hydrology of shallow Mediterranean lake during 2006 to 2020. So first, I would like to thank to all the members of my research group because they were very collaborators to all the work, to all the study. Thanks to all the collaborators during the field tasks and during the laboratory work. And thanks to the Environmental Agency of Valencia for all the facilities given during the study. So, well, the objectives of our study were principal was to depend in the hydrological study of a Mediterranean coastal world. In this case, was the Park Natural of Valencia, of Albufera, sorry, from Valencia, Spain, including its shallow lake with a multidisciplinary approach based on the understanding of hydrodynamics and ecological processes taking place in that system. To arrive this main objective, we follow the secondary objectives. First, to monitor the rice field hydroperiods in the wetland during 2006 to 2020 using LASA TM instance. Second, to assess the resident times of the shallow lake during 2006 to 2018 under an annual and seasonal level, studying together with the phases of the cycle cultivation period. And third, to compare the described dynamics of flooding with the recorded rainfall in the wetland, to study the natural cycle of flooding versus the agricultural cycle. So the principal conclusions of our study were the indices that we use and apply to the satellite images. Have followed a detailed monitoring of the hydrological regimen of the coastal wetland, as we can see in the figure on the right, the different indices, the normalized difference water index and the normalized difference vegetation index, as well as determination of extension and water volume of flooded areas. So we can follow all the cycle of the flooding during all the time, during the 15 years. Second, flood cycle is consistent over the years, although in the last years it's true that a delay in the start of the rise cycle is observed. This could be related to a change in water management. Third, water renewal in Albufera Lake is dependent on the phase of cultivation, how we can see in the figure down and right. Yes, this could be related with high resident times that have a relation for a shallow lake with negatively affects to his trophic status. And fourth, and finally, the hydrological cycle of the wetland is in line with agricultural needs. This is very important. Renewal rates are reduced and altered with respect to natural cycle as water from rainfall is used to flood the fields. So, well, these were the conclusions of our study. Thank you very much for your attention. I left my contact here if you want to ask me any questions, if you want. I'm really happy to answer now. Okay.
Thank you, Lucia. I have a question for you that I took from the forum, and then I will ask the audience if there more questions from Alejandro Lopez. Congratulations, Lucia. My question is, there is any restoration or mitigation action currently on the Albufair Lake?
Yes, Nestor. There are different plans that the national agency Spain is carrying on in the natural park, but these different plans isn't enough to change the status of the lake, and there is necessary to change different points, mainly the points related to the water quality that is used for rise the files of the, because these charges of nutrients is going down to finally go to the lake, and this is very important to change. We need more restricted limits to nitrogen and phosphorus, for example, and we need charges of water of high quality. So there is reality that there is different plans, but these plans isn't enough to change the quality right now. I don't know if I answer your question.
Thank you. Is there more questions for Lucia?
Elisabeth?
Elizabeth, please.
Yeah, so thank you, Lucia, for this nice talk. And I know very well Susanna, so please say hello.
Oh, okay.
I just wonder, because in your systems you have a very different season, because it's Mediterranean and most rain in winter and is strong. So you have a mixture between, let's say, the heat waves and the extreme precipitation events. Is this something that you can follow with in the long term with your approach?
Yes, we study the rainfall. It's true that in the Mediterranean climate is very important, the fluctuations of the rainfall, because in the spring there are torrential rains that affect to the systems, and we are studied this because we compare the rainfall, the impact in the wetland. There are too many times that this water is run off and go to the sea finally, and don't be used to the paddies, because the phase of the cultivation cycle in that moment is that the phase is dried. So yes, it's very important to understand the relation between precipitations and the agricultural activity. Yes.
Thank you.
I have a question to Lucia. Do you think that the controller regime of waters that impose the agricultural cycle increase or decrease the variability that natural had the regime of the Albufera, specifically the interannual variability that you show in the bars, in the monthly bars?
Okay, I don't know if I understand. You said you are asking if the these changes in the wetland affect the biodiversity?
No, if the changes, the anthropic change of the water regime increase or decrease the annual variability?
Ah, okay. I think that this action that happened in the wetland improve that the trophic status of the lake is eutrophic. So the changes that happen in the fauna and all the biota is very important, because especially for the cyanobacteria, for example, and all the algae. Yes, this could be related to the quality of the water and to the phytoplankton and zooplankton that is in the water. So I don't know if I answered your question, but yes.
I will read your paper.
Okay. Thank you, Maria.
No, thank you. You, Lucia, and Margot, are you ready for your presentation?
Yes.
So, We are seeing your screen.
Okay, so thank you. Hello, everybody. I am Margot Sepp, and glad to have you all here listening to this interesting session. And I am going to introduce a research from me and my colleagues about the role of catchment characteristics on dissolved organic matter and nutrients in temperate lakes. So increasing dissolved organic, So the transport of dissolved organic matter and nutrients is affected by local climate, hydrological conditions, geology, soil cover, land cover and vegetation, land use and population density in the catchments. And while the role of land cover types has been thoroughly studied, especially in the North Temperate Zone, fewer studies have evaluated soil types. So we believe that our study is the first to find connections between dissolved organic matter and nutrients in lake water with organic carbon and nutrients in catchment soils. So we used cartographic and chemical data for 52 temperate lakes in Estonia to relate catchment characteristics, so including geology, hydrology, land cover and soil, to the variability in dissolved organic carbon, total organic nitrogen and total phosphorus in lakes, and to assess the relative importance of different land cover and soil types as sources of these lakes. And now about the conclusions. To sum up, DOC patterns were similar to those of TON and TP, indicating that vectors. Catchment soil cover was the best predictor of DOC, TON and TP levels in lakes. Nevertheless, previous studies examining relationships between catchment characteristics and nutrient concentration in lakes have not included information about soil variables. Applied land cover types may have been too broad and thus less informative than specific soil types. And understanding which catchment characteristics had the greatest impacts on DOC, TON, and TP concentrations in temperate lakes is crucial for developing catchment scale export models for predicting TOM and nutrients and their responses to future changes in catchment land use and climate. So that was a short conclusion about my presentation, and you can watch the whole presentation in the repository. So thank you for attention, and I would like to answer your questions.
Thank you, Margot. I have a question from you, took from the forum, from Alejandro Lopez. Congratulations, Margot. My question is the brownification phenomena recent or on your study zone, or it is a long-term issue?
Thank you, Alejandro. So brownification was already acknowledged in 1990s in Northern Europe and Northern America. So it's not a new issue, but to see, like, is it a problem, you have to have data back from 1970s to see if there are changes in dissolved organic matter concentrations in lakes or streams. But it has been acknowledged that this problem has been in the lakes already in the 1990s, so last decades.
Thank you. Is there any more question to Margot? Remember that you can raise hands through the reactions button of Zoom. Elizabeth, please.
if nobody else ever would take a chance again.
You're welcome.
Because it's a very complex interaction and very nice approach that you put in all the dissolved organic components, because they are, I think they together with the light and the nutrients will really play a big role. So I just wonder, because the plants, well, you will have very specific algae dominating once you have more turbid water, more yellow water. So, and they are not all always, so there is, all, in my opinion, also a lot of mixotrophy increasing. Do you know? Or is this part of your view on these systems?
Yeah, in Estonia we have a lot of humic lakes with very dark water, so their communities have adapted to this dark water. But we also have a lot of these mixotrophic lakes, so they have quite dark water with humic material, but also they are quite productive.
Okay. Thank you.
Any more questions? I have a brief one, Margot. Do you think the agricultural practices in Estonian fields, are they conservative? Are they aggressive to the soil?
I think the situation was worse during the Soviet time, so especially in the 1980s, because a lot of fertilizers were used in agriculture. So after the collapse of that system, the agriculture started to use less fertilizers, and the situation also was improving in the lakes. But now we're farmers are more rich again, and they can also use more fertilizers, but it's not so bad as in the 1980s. So I think it's not so conservative, but it's still quite good.
Okay, thank you. And thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Then we give place to Juan. Juan, are you ready for share your screen?
Yes.
Very brief resume of your video.
You can see it?
Yes.
Can you see
perfectly?
It? Well, hello everyone. I'm studying researcher from the Aquatic Ecology Group of Buenos Aires University, Facultad de Agronomía. I hope you enjoy the video, and I will a little overview of morphometry of littoral zone and its effect on light environment shallow lakes within an agricultural landscape. The adjacent vegetation ring of a water body offers several ecological services. The mitigation of agricultural impacts offered by the rooter plants, tramping sediment and metabolizing nutrients that could diminish eutrophication process in the lake. We took this idea of the protective effect of a vegetative buffer zone and deal in the morphology and integrity of the adjacent vegetation ring. So the study objective was to characterize the zone and relate the presence and integrity of rooter vegetation bed on a water transparency. Focus on the effect of shape, size, and integrity of the vegetative buffer zone in the lake ecosystem function, surrogate through the light in the water column. And the study site is located in the central pampa of Buenos Aires, Argentina. It's a transitional zone between island flat pampa and flooding pampa, which characterizes the littoral morphology of 11 small shallow lakes by processing satellite image with proper field data validation. To describe variables, we took internal and external border by traveling with GPS and SW maps mobile phone application to calculate response variables. We took statistics and TIP. And to better system understanding, we register macrophyte type and light use on surrounding. Resuming our study approach, littoral shape, size, and integrity, we are summarized into 4 different descriptors: development of the borderline, mean width, and bad feather to water aeration, and integrity. And as a surrogate of the ecosystem function, we modify Reynolds underwater light climax index. study object was the upper littoral zone, the zone of emergent rooted vegetation that made as an buffer zone, the zone circumscribed by both borders adjacent to the lake. We form variation in the light environment of the set of lakes, from thus very turbid to the most clear, but no one of the formation proposed could explain alone the difference between lakes and the light environment. So multivariate analysis was employed to cope the inner variability of data, cluster analysis for data grouping, and principal component analysis to understand the well variability, reached 82% of the total variability. And we, 3 data sets, littoral vegetation zone, were identified. 2 with a deteriorated vegetation belt in red color, clear with a health littoral vegetation zone in green color, and clear with submerged and immersion macrophytes in blue color. Mean width buffer to water region integrity strongly described photic to depth pressure greater than 1. No, forgive me. Size and
yes. we just see your first slide.
In the title, no cambió. No. Oh, thing.
They didn't change. But
now you
don't
will see.
No, the screen is with the first slide, and don't worry. I think that we all saw your video. So if you
please.
Now it works.
Now not.
Yep.
Well, easy resume. I take these 2 graphs of the video and the work to connect with the 2 conclusions. So when we start in the beginning, we tried to obtain linear related, but we can obtain it. There is deterioration lines. So we needed to multivariate analyze, and we found that the 3 descriptors, principal, the size, and the integrity, can explain and separate 2 big groups, clear and turbid, and we found a first clear group with submerged macrophytes. And then with this synthesis graph, we explored and discuss better what happened, and of course, with size and integrity principle, we can contrast the effects without a good integrity and size of buffer zone with the complete and high size of buffers. And then the more synthesis than I can do.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there some questions to Juan? I have one from the forum, but be ready for others. I will read them. From Alejandro. Congratulations, Juan. Have you noticed or hypothesized any relation between littoral zone morphometry and submerged plants?
Yes, but it's like a conclusion of this work. In the start, I don't think that happened. From this work, the proposal allows to test between dry and humid periods how the state of the system changes when submerged once disappear. In fact, this summer I'm travel to the system. One of the lakes that have macrophytes submerged was completed in true state without macrophytes. So I'm pretty anxious to go again and do it the same relevance, comparing the dry and wet period.
Is there another question? Go ahead. So I will make mine. Juan, in the second group, you have turbid with deteriorated littoral zone, clear with healthy littoral zone, and clear with submerged plants and emergent plants. This group, the clear with healthy littoral zone, have or lack submerged macrophytes? Do you know that?
Yes, part of the field assessment to complementary understand the system was identify macrophyte types in the surrender, and the only group that have a macrophyte submerged was the blue group. The green group and the red group didn't.
Thank you.
Didn't have.
Any more questions? Okay, thank you, Juan, then. And I receive now Catalina. Please share your screen and give us the highlights of your work. Catalina, are you talking? You have your mic closed.
Oh, sorry, sorry, I didn't realize.
Start again.
Okay, can you all see the full presentation, right? Full screen presentation. Okay, thank you. So I'm Catalina. I am my meta science student from the University of Buenos Aires. Our work name is Characterization of the Vegetation Belt and its ability to protect the shallow lakes on the Pampa landscapes. This study is in the Pampa Plains 2. It complements the study that Juan has just presented, but now we will focus in the internal characteristics of the vegetation belt of the macrophytes. Our specific objectives are to group lakes with similar upper littoral zone vegetation features, examine the relationship between vegetation and Lake Sekidis lecture, and identify possible effects of the surrounding land use in the upper littoral zone. So we measure richness, biomass, and the coverage of each aquatic plant biotype using the standard quadrats method. And we compare between lakes surrounded by crops, by cattle pastures, and with convenient situation with both crops and cattle. Our results show that hydrophytes cover has the most direct relationship with Sekidis lecture transparency, and species richness had a negative relationship with lakes transparency, probably because richness in this study case was mainly represented by herbaceous species that invade this upper littoral zone in the canopy patches during the dry season. Otherwise, there were no significant influence of the biomass of the Immersion Macrophytes in the lake's turbidity. And this multiple correspondence analysis allow us to group lakes, the vegetation belt lake features with the different surrounding land use and two categories of lakes transparency. We got this group down here that is mainly represented by lakes surrounded by with both crops and cattle. And we can see that we have the lower value of emergent macrophytes cover in the vegetation belt, and also the lower transparency value. So we can see this as a sign of system degradation. Then we have a group that correspond to cattle presence with higher majority of Phenoplectus californicus dominans, also known as the giant bulrush. So here we also have the higher biomass average values. And this group that correspond to crops presence but without cattle, with Phenoplectus americanus dominans, that is a much smaller and weaker bulrush. The principal conclusions of this study is that emergent macrophytes cover in the littoral zone helps conserving the water transparency because it prevents contaminants and eroded soil to reach the lake, and that surrounding land use may influence the species cover, richness, and biomass of the vegetation belt. So many simple solutions, such like avoiding cattle to intrude in this zone, like putting fences or some kind of barrier, can drastically improve the water quality. Thank you very much. I think that's all. If you have any question.
Thank you, Catalina. Nice presentation. Maybe some questions for her?
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Rafael?
Yes. I have a question. Can I make it?
Sorry?
Can I make one question?
Rafael, we hear you very, very bad with a
Yeah,
lot of noise.
Can you write it?
I have one question.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
In the middle, I will read a question from in the forum that is from Maria Laura Sanchez. Very interesting study, Catalina. Did you consider to use satellite image for information to estimate emergent macrophytes cover? I think that it will be very interesting and complementary since you have a lot of data field that will allow you to use remote sensing information. What do you think?
Of course, I agree. I think that will be really interesting too. And now we got the data field. It will be really useful to do a study, a satellite study. Also, we can use satellite images to also corroborate the surrounding land use. And yeah, I think it will be a really nice contribution. Thanks.
Okay, we are waiting for the question of Rafael. He's writing now. Is there some other question?
Hi, I also have
Gabriela.
a question. Hi, hello. Thank you for a very nice, interesting talk. I was wondering about what's the conservation status of the vegetation belt, like if the surrounding landowners or farmers are collaborative and willing to protect these vegetation belts, or what's the situation like?
So usually no, these lakes, these small lakes are really underprotected, and it's the vegetation belt will too. So that's why these studies are important. So we can more legal protection, and also more conscious about the importance of the lakes and the zone, literal zone, can be considered.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Rafael, are you ready?
Sorry, my mic was, Zoom kicked me out. I'm trying to write here. I'm just finishing my question. Just one more second.
Sorry, I can't hear you very well. I don't understand.
He's finishing his question, I think. He said that.
I don't see it yet in the chat.
He's writing it, I think.
Okay. In the middle, I will ask to Regina that be ready for your presentation. Here he is. Sorry, yeah. Do you think, Catalina, asked Rafael, do you think that submerged macrophytes associated to emergent macrophytes occurrence can help stabilize the sediments?
Yeah, I think I really didn't thought before the association. I mean, both emergent and submerged macrophytes, like together associated with these sediment stabilize. But yeah, I think they will. I mean, both type of macrophytes help stabilizing the sediments. So I think it will be good to think about this association. When we did this study, there were no emergent macrophytes in the zone we studied, in the upper littoral zone, because it was a dry season. So we only have emergent macrophytes. But maybe it will be good to also study the associated relationships. But we also choose emergent macrophytes because they stay alive in several years. I mean, you can have these lakes are really changing because of the rain and dry season and wet season. So this emergent macrophyte will be with this emergent macrophyte will be still alive, making these protective effects in the lakes, whether there is water or there is no water in that zone. And submerged macrophytes are more vulnerable to dry season. I don't know if I answer your question. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank Catalina. Is there any more question for her?
I saw a question on the forum from Alejandro Lopez. It's a difficult one, but I think I can answer it too. I know you can.
It's very recent. I didn't see it. Do you have there, Catalina? Ecosystem, relationship, characterization, vegetation belt.
Okay, he said, congratulations, Catalina. How would you difference the supposed buffer effects of the plant from the land use effect? So this is difficult because we have many effects in we have many stuff in field, like doing their effects together. That's why we use multiple analyze multivariate analysis. Thank you, Maria. But I think that a next step in these studies is to do laboratory ensayos in laboratorio, like to try it in a more controlled experiment and not on field. So that will be more for measuring the effects without the land use, the surrounding land use. Sorry for my English.
It's okay. Well, thank you very much. And I will ask Regina to share your screen, please, and to tell us the highlights of your work. Just a highlight, please, because I am afraid that we will pass the time.
Hello, Maria. Hi, it's Rafael here. I hope you can hear me. I'm a co-author of Regina. Regina is having problems with the connection.
Okay.
So I will make the presentation for her. She'll be on the background trying to help us in the answers, if possible.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Rafael. But we can't hear you really clear. Regina, you're there.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to do this presentation for Regina, and the presentation is entitled Climate and Landscape Properties, including land use, interactively affect water quality. When you look at the threats that inland waters are subjected to, we have habitat change, climate change, and pollution, nitrogen and phosphorus loads as the major drivers that can affect biodiversity and ecosystem functioning in general. And when we look at the climate change aspects, most of the research, they focus on temperature. However, changes on the precipitation region may also be an important climate effect. We know that depending on the land use, on the anthropogenic use of the landscape, change on precipitation can promote nitrogen and phosphorus load in aquatic ecosystems. And even in pristine landscapes, rain can carry organic carbon and other compounds to the aquatic ecosystem. So we have here an interaction of climate, in this case, precipitation regions, and land use that will be the focus of this research. Another important aspect is the connectivity of this aquatic ecosystem with the surrounding. So we can have different areas that can affect the aquatic ecosystem, and also the shape of the ecosystem that can affect how these the terrestrial part and the aquatic part are connected. So this study was conducted in the northeast part of Brazil, in the state of Rio Grande do Norte. The city of Natal is right here, where the meeting is being held, not held physically, but here is Natal. And we surveyed approximately 100 lakes back in 2012. When you look closely to these lakes, not just, these are natural lakes and reservoirs, a mix of natural and artificial ecosystems. Here we have a closer look at the surrounding of these lakes. They are very distinct, some with pasture, agriculture, recreational parks, and so on. We did an analysis of the catchment area of all these lakes using geoprocessing tools. We also classified the land use based on database that you have about forests, urban use, agricultural pastures, so it could classify the surrounding of these lakes. And for the data analysis, we use robust regression models, a technique based on machine learning, which is a very interesting approach when we want to detect interactions between predictors. As results, the model gave us interesting candidates. We had here as a response variable the water quality, which is a compound variable that uses chlorophyll A, total phosphorus, and total nitrogen in the water column. So this water quality variable was affected by precipitation, the variation, the precipitation, some morphometric properties of the lakes, and the anthropogenic use of the buffer area of the surrounding, and also the anthropogenic use of the catchment area. So just to highlight the best model here, I have a graph picture showing the main results. So what we have here, down here, is a gradient of water quality. To the right, worse water quality, more chlorophyll and more nutrients, and to the left, a better water quality, less chlorophyll and less nutrients. So when the anthropogenic use of the surrounding of the lake, the buffer area, is greater than 92%, we have a worse water quality. And within this group, when the coefficient of variation of the precipitation is high, we have the worst case scenario. On the other hand, when the anthropogenic use is less than 92%, important factor is the shape of the lake, the volume of the lake in relationship to the buffer area, to the surrounding. And when this ratio is high, which means that the lake is small, we have a worse condition. But when the lake are big, when we have big lakes, it's where we have the better water quality conditions possible. So this illustrates the main results. And just to highlight what we observed, an interaction between precipitation, anthropogenic use in the surrounding, and the anthropogenic use in the catchment area. In those small lakes, those that are where the anthropogenic use of the catchment area is higher, we have the worst water quality condition. If you have no further questions, you can email Regina about anything, and I'm also available here to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. Thank you, Rafael. Thank you, Regina. It's a very nice work what you did, and you have a very interesting number of lakes.
For sure, yeah. It wasn't 100 precisely, was 98 as far as I can remember, but it's still a really large number.
Okay, is there any questions for Regina, Rafael team? I know that there is one in the forum from Alejandro. Congratulations. My question is, I see a great number of artificial lakes in your study. What is the purpose or use of the constructed shallow lakes in your study area?
Okay, these artificial lakes are reservoirs that are used for many purposes. People use these lakes for, getting water to drink, to use in agriculture, or to even fish. They raise fish there to export, as a food alternative. So there are many purposes of these artificial lakes, but most of them are water reservoirs that are used for the population in general.
Thank you. Another question?
Did Regina include any other buffer with the model? Yes, actually the buffer, we have different buffer areas, 50 meters, 100 meters, and so on. So we use different sizes of buffer in the analysis for this specific study. I wasn't able here to show all the results, but this study was published in the journal Science of Total Environment. So if you want to take a look in details of all the results and all the methods, maybe the paper will help a lot. I will share here in the chat a link to the paper so people can have access to it.
Rafael, I don't have a question, but a suggestion or maybe a topic to discuss if we have the time at the end of the session. You call the nearest catchment zone the buffer zone. But buffer is an effect. It's not a place. So you may have the buffer effect or not, dependent on the integrity or the activities that you have there. Maybe I don't have if the name buffer zone is correct for any nearest surrounding of the lake, or you must call the surrounded area and maybe have or have not buffer effect. What do you think?
So the term buffer, the buffer effect in this case, why the buffer was used? Using the buffer to calculate the proportion of anthropogenic use in that buffer. So the buffer is just an area surrounding these lakes, and we calculated the anthropogenic use. And the anthropogenic use could be anything, anything that we could use that database that could, indicate us some kind of anthropogenic use. And depending on this proportion, we detect or not the effect. But as you said, it's a black box, right? We don't know what actually is determining the effects. We just know that there is a higher or lower proportion of anthropogenic use in this buffer. But what is really happening there would require further analysis to decompose all the possible land use, cases that we have.
Okay, you must apologize myself because I can't hear you precisely your words. Then maybe we can talk about in another moment.
For sure. I understand, Maria. A lot of people are complaining about my microphone. Sorry, my apologies. But
okay.
It's the only one that I have right now, so my apologies.
Okay. Thank you very much for your nice work. It is any more question or comment? I need to ask
Maria. Sorry, Maria. Regina is
Fernando?
writing. Yes, Regina is writing.
Yeah, Regina is answering the previous question about the buffer sizes, which buffer sizes were used, and she's answering right here.
Okay. I need to continue because of the time. We must spend the time, so maybe we can read after at the end the answer of the comments. I need to ask for the remaining presentators that you be very brief in your highlights. Remember that we all saw all the videos, so we are familiarized with the conclusions, but to talk about just the highlights. And now I will give place for the presentation of Alejandro. Welcome, Alejandro. We hear you.
Hello everyone. Thank you. So I will go straight forward to the conclusion, to the summary of the highlights of the work. So I will not bore you necessarily. So in our study, we found 4 categories of main land use, being lands with specific livestock use, whether they had cattle or no at the moment of the study, and then cropland lands, which we also separate in 2 different groups. Within these 4 land use categories, we found some particularities. Mainly is that each category within these subcategories has a transparent and a turbid state. Being this one right here, water transparency high and lower correspond to each one of the 2 main uses, being livestock or cropland. And within these particularities, we only find the presence of submerged macrophyte, which is it's well known as a very important factor on the stability and the condition of the system. We only find the vegetative state on the clear lagoons of the cropland use. Another characteristic was the small biomass of fishes in these lakes, and the absence of large cladocera. Another highlight is that, this is set in automatic. The other highlight is that even if the more transparent state of the cattle lands will theoretically permit the submerged macrophyte to grow, we found none such a state. I mean, there was no presence of submerged macrophyte on the clear livestock use. As a common feature for all the land uses, no large cladocera was found on any of our study sites. And even more enigmatic is that the more transparent state of the clear state in the croplands has in comparison the lowest biomass of small cladocera. Thank you. That will be all.
Thank you, Alejandro. I think that your work will inspire a couple of questions. So the big question is, here we have one from Maria Laura. Very interesting, Alejandro. Why do you think there are no submerged macrophytes in the more clear lakes of the subset grassland wetlands? The big question.
Yes, this is some issue that may strike. Although in this work I don't go deep in the subject, we may think it has to do with the type of the magnitude that the cattle impact does to these water lakes. If you see in detail my presentation, you will see that the livestock use has no boundaries between the in and the out on the water column. I mean, cattle can step and enter the entire surface of the lagoon, and even more because of their very shallow, less than a meter. So this kind of impact does make a difference between the agricultural impact. And the question of the temporarily, they are clear because of their lack of cattle, because of reasons we don't know, because they retired the cattle to take air well or whatever. In the moment they might turn more transparent, but they don't get the vegetated state. I mean, because of this of the very high impact that the cattle has on the system by breaking the structure of the sediment, breaking the structure of the macrophyte, eating them. I don't know, resuspended sediments. I mean, it must be a multifactorial explanation, but certainly has to do with the cattle.
Is there any more question to Alejandro? Then thank you.
Welcome.
And I welcome Nestor that he's here with us.
Hi, good morning to everyone. Good afternoon to all the people located in Europe or other part of the.
Nice to see you, Nestor.
Yeah, I replaced to Ismael that actually has a more minor inconvenient, but I try to summarize and also reply the main question. In this sense, Paula, that also is in this session and participate of this contribution. Please, Paula, share your...
I'll leave the screen, Alejandro, and we will give place to Paula.
Okay. Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, in the case of this contribution is connected with one of the main problem in Uruguay that's in the same way that happened at global scale is related to eutrophication. And in this sense, Uruguay presents important water crisis related to cyanobacteria blooms, so the classical consequence of the eutrophication. In this presentation, we explore how can predict the nutrient inputs according with the information available in our country that actually is very good in terms of, for example, a map of soil or, for example, the land use, also geology. We have a lot of information from the basin, but actually we are very bad in terms of limnological and water quality information. In this sense, for us, it's not possible to use models that works very well like SWOT, but we use in this presentation, in this contribution, a combination of geographical information system and several techniques of machine learning in order to predict the concentration of nitrogen and phosphorus according with several attributes and available information that right now exists in Uruguay. And we test this approach in two examples. One is in the Canelones Council, and the other one is in the Laguna del Sauce Basin, that is the second drinking water supply system in terms of the people that supply these services. And well, the main result is possible to predict an important spatial variation in the case of Laguna del Sauce that we analyzed 118 small basin and try to predict the concentration of nitrogen and phosphorus according with these basin attributes. And in some cases, we can predict 50% of the spatial pattern. And in this sense, works very well. It's a very good approach according with the information available, and also is quite easy to improve the approach. For example, we can put on the table the information of fertilizer use that right now is not incorporated in this information, but is possible to incorporate. And also, on the other hand, it's quite important because you can identify the main drivers that explain the spatial heterogeneity. And in this sense, this approach works, is quite useful for the land planning, and also is quite useful for rehabilitation perspective because identify the most important driver and the possible rehabilitation strategy, for example, the incorporation new practice in agriculture, or for example, try to develop some management strategy of the buffer zone, and so on. That is all. I try to summarize in few seconds.
And you did it very well. Thank you, Nestor. I know that there is a question in the forum that I will read now from Alejandro Lopez. Congratulations, Ismael and Nestor. Is there currently any mitigation or restoration action going on in Laguna del Sauce Lake?
Thank you for the comment and the question, quite relevant. In the case of Laguna del Sauce, exists a plan that emerged in 2015 after an important drinking water supply crisis related to Cylindropermopsis bloom and several interferences. And well, the plan includes several measures, and one of the most important is the creation of buffer zones, and also try to regulate the land use, especially the agriculture and the livestock, and at the same time try to incorporate new strategies about the nutrient input, diffusive nutrient input. Right now, the Agriculture Ministry are developing a beautiful project about this with the main farmers in order to explore new alternatives that reduce the nutrient inputs.
Very nice. Tobias has his hand up.
Yes, thank you for
Please.
a nice presentation. I was wondering if you explained that you haven't used SWOT for this, but it looks like you have all the data that you actually need to run a SWOT model. You have a very, very good data set with a lot of sampling all around the catchment. So I was curious if you have tried to set up a SWOT, or why you have not done this or explored this option.
Thank you, Tobias. I agree with you. I think that the right or the properly way to improve our capacity of prediction and supply robust tools for land planning is the SWOT, without any doubt. And on the other hand, we have a lot of information for SWOT approach. The main problem in Uruguay is the information of the water quality, that we have a lot of information, but for very few examples. And if you want to extrapolate the situation to several important basins, it's almost impossible because we have no information about water quality. And in this sense, probably the next year we improve a lot the water quality monitoring. And probably in some basin, like Rio Santa Lucia basin that supply water for the most important metropolitan area of Uruguay, that include Montevideo, but also in the case of this system, Laguna del Sauce, probably the SWAT will be okay the next and functioning in the next years in the case of these two examples. But for the rest of the country, we need to improve a lot our water quality monitoring that almost don't exist in important areas of the Uruguay.
Thank you. Is there any more question? Thank you then, Nestor, for your nice work in your beloved country. And
Goodbye. Un gran abrazo a todos.
Thank you. Please, Elizabeth, share your screen and tell us about your work. Thank you. Ready? But you have your mic closed.
Yeah, now it's on. Sorry. So yes, as you said, we have a French-German collaboration, but I'm actually a German in France, so but there are some real French people in the project. We are interested in the impact of multiple stressors on shallow aquatic systems, and we are not working in real lakes, so sorry for that. But our question is to look not only at phytoplankton and macrophyte competition, but also to include periphyton and the first trophic level. So looking for consumers such as snails, mussels, or zooplankton, and how they are affected by, we are rather working with warming than with heat waves, so a constant increase by 3 to 4 centigrade, and a cocktail made of copper because it's used in organic agriculture, an insecticide, herbicide, and fungicide, and nitrates. So one possibility of a cocktail based on experience also from ecotoxicology. And we think that these shallow systems are very vulnerable because they have this high surface to volume ratio, and that these different compounds will strongly interfere with this benthic pelagic processes in the systems. So this picture here shows you from what we have several series of different microcosm and mesocosm experiments, and this one is taking the control situation where you see lots of Daphnia, some plants. With some nitrates, you see a bit more periphyton already. And when you have the pesticides, which are the organic ones, and the copper, it's green. And when you add more nitrate, it's even more green. So it's a common scheme that we observed. Our cocktail is causing this shift to the phytoplankton dominance, but there are also, depending on the complexity and situation of the consumers, we also have some effects on the periphyton. So in these indoor systems, if you look here at the main results for the macrophytes and the periphyton and phytoplankton, we see that there are some contrasting effects on different macrophyte species, and that the strongest effects were on a typically competitive species, Myriophyllum spicatum, which was negatively affected by the pesticides and additionally negatively affected by the nitrates, but positively by the temperature. The periphyton reacted negatively only strongly in the cold, so at ambient temperature, and reacted to the pesticides and pesticides plus nitrate. And this was inverse for the phytoplankton, which strongly, what you saw in the pictures, increased the dominance. We had some temporary, some transitory effects, and I will sum up all those in this final scheme, which is still a little bit complex. We are trying to underline this with models, for example, structure equation models, but yeah, because of the temporarities, it's not so easy. But in general, what you can see, it's a range of arrows that have straight lines, which are direct effects. We think we have quite a lot of indirect effects, and we have some transient effects. What you see is that the nitrates have some transient effect on the microalgae as well as the temperature. There are some direct negative effects of the pesticides, specifically on the consumers, but also on the phytoplankton. And this all acts together to influence the macrophyte compartment by putting on a negative pressure on the macrophytes, and also different grazing. So the lower periphyton by higher phytoplankton would also be a lower nutrient compartment, nutrient resource for example, the limnea. So we think it's important going a little bit beyond and including what has been proposed already in 78 by Phillips, Amundsen and Moss, not to have only phytoplankton and macrophytes, but to go also for these periphytic algae and include them in the picture. So we hope that with also some other talks, we can answer some of the complexity of these multiple stressors on these shallow aquatic systems in our mechanistic approaches. Thank you for inviting us to this session.
Thank you, Elizabeth. As you said, very multiple approach in the experimental mode, but with many ways to attack the problem. And very complex your system, microcosms, but very complex with many components, very, very interesting. Can do we have some question for Elizabeth? I have a question, but it's not maybe a biological question, but an experimental and agronomic question. Why your agricultural runoff have not phosphorus?
Because we saw that phosphorus is very much investigated. And there are recently more and more papers talking about the impact of nitrates. But some of the papers on nitrate effects on macrophytes, for example, also from Prime Nos, they claim that the impact is more strong when nitrate is high in winter. But we think that with some of our systems, so here where we have consumers and primary producers, we see effects of nitrate. And when we have only microcosms with primary producers that you will see in other talks, of one was already on Tuesday, then you see also some antagonistic effect because the nitrates are kind of taking away negative effects of the pesticides. So it's a complex effect. Okay. But yeah, you are right. Mostly it's both, but nitrates, of course, they are very water soluble, and the phosphorus, it's a lot coming with the sediments and the particles. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
You use the water from the natural lake to fill the microcosms?
Different. So here we use the standard like a tap, a drinking water, and in the mesocosms we used the water that was in Munich available well water. And we are now setting up some ditches where we use rainwater that will then be enriched by elements. So to have.
Very nice, very nice. We have here in the chat a question from Monica Pinardi. Thanks, Elizabeth. Very interesting. If I will understand, there is a negative effect of temperature on Potamogeton perfoliatus. How can you explain this? For example, it seems opposite the effect on Myriophyllum spicatum.
Yeah, I think these are different temperature optima for the different species, and so the Myriophyllum is really one that likes it warm and dominates, and maybe the strong growth of the Myriophyllum has also in there, I didn't put this in here, might have also reduced the development of the other species or not have allowed us too strong a development. It's also this species, if I look in natural lakes, it's one coming in spring and not staying too long in summer in our temperate zones. It's at the hottest season in lakes, this Potamogeton species is very often already going away.
The clean shift team has a lot of works in the Congress. And very
yeah,
nice.
We tried to be present. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, very, very nice, all of them. Thank you very much, Elizabeth. Any more questions? So we arrived to the last presentation of today. Tobias, please share your screen and we listen to you.
So I'll try and keep this brief. So I presented. So my presentation, as you can see, is about lake models. So we did a pilot study for the Danish EPA that explored if we can use process-based lake ecosystem models to manage our lakes and to, for example, set nutrient thresholds to control nutrient runoff from the catchment. So I showed some results. So we used the lake model called Water Ecosystems tool that simulates the most important processes in a temperate lake. So you have nutrients for nitrogen and phosphorus. You have several different phytoplankton, zooplankton groups. You have macrophytes, and you have fish. And we all do this in a water column. So we have sediment and a pelagic zone in each layer. So we can, for example, also simulate the depth of the macrophytes. And I showed some results where we reproduced the ecosystem dynamics for a shallow lake, Lake Hinge, here in Denmark, for 14 years, I think. Here's just the results for the total phosphorus, total nitrogen, and the chlorophyll A. And then we used this calibrated, validated model to run some scenario simulation, exploring when we will actually see a recolonization of macrophytes in this lake. So we decreased the nutrient loading with several different percentages. And just here you see a subsection of these. So yeah, this was just to highlight you can actually use these process-based models to further inform our lake management and to maybe also go a little bit more in detail with some of the in-lake processes.
It's very interesting, your wet model, very nice to see the network of relationships.
Thank you.
We have a question in the forum for you. Question made by Alejandro Lopez. Congratulations, Tobias. Is there any management measure taking place currently on Danish lakes based on the wet model?
Yeah, so thank you for the question, Alejandro. Not yet. So in Denmark, we run these 5-year cycles of water plan according to the Water Framework Directive, and we, I think we're a bit too slow. So the Danish EPA was impressed with the work, but I think with only 5 lakes, we need a little bit more to show the scale of it. But we identified, I think, 30 to 50 lakes that we have enough data to actually run these models. So a long-term plan and a wish could be that we have so many lakes with the model set up that we could actually extrapolate this to further results. So and another reason for this that it could be a good idea is I showed just a slide also where we compare this with the current management with the very well-known Vollenweider relationship that is used now. And for some lakes, this is just perfect, and for some lakes, it's a bit off. And this, of course, has an important impact on the management and we have a lot of farmers in Denmark, so they would like to know if we can just be 10% more precise in setting a nutrient threshold. Then that would be a lot and could mean a lot to them as well. So this is one of the reasons why I think we still keep working on this.
I went to your web page, to the web page of the model. You brings them to test it in other lakes in different places away from Denmark. So I think that it must be a very flexible model.
Yeah, so I'm currently working on trying to make it work on a Chinese lake, a tropical, subtropical Chinese lake, and also a lake here in Brazil. So yeah, we need some work to get a better fit. So this is what has happened, that we have developed the lake models in Northern Europe or Europe, and then we can struggle when it gets a bit warm in the climate and we have another food web. But this is something we definitely need to handle. But the results currently look good. And yeah, I can answer Monica's question. The lake model is wet, at least it's open source. So all the code is out there on GitHub. If you follow the link in the presentations, you can see there's a lot of descriptions, and there's also a lot of video tutorials if you want to play around with this yourself. It's quite easy when we have all the videos. So yeah, and it's a lot of fun to do as well. We do it a lot of in teaching, so it's nice for biologists to get really into the ecosystem.
Very, very fun. The equations that shape the model, are all of them empirically derived, or maybe they are also experimentally derived?
So the wet model is based on the PC lake model, that is, which is a very good model for shallow lakes. So we further developed it so it's a bit more flexible, and now also can include water layers, and has a hydrodynamic model. So the temperature and turbulence, the description is a bit better. But yeah, most of it is theoretical and experimental, and of course the parameterization of the models is always within literature ranges. But you know, we don't go out and measure, because as you see, my data set is from the 90s. So yeah, that's not possible. But then you have to rely on literature values. And I could tell Gabriella that we used an differential evolution algorithm to optimize and calibrate on.
Any other question? To close the session, then I will read a message from Coca that he wrote before he left the session. Hi, everybody. Unfortunately, I need to leave now, but the session will continue. Nada. And then I take this opportunity to invite you guys to submit your nice work for this special volume of hydrobiology with the contributions of the Congress. Thank you, and see you tomorrow. Tomorrow is the last day of the Congress. I think that this was a wonderful Congress. It really surpassed my expectations of that. And thank you all to be here for all the presentations. We have 9 more presentations tomorrow, and I then invite you to be here. And see you tomorrow. Goodbye. Goodbye, everyone. Have a nice afternoon, night. Till tomorrow.
Goodbye, Maria. Thank you.
Juan Pablo, thank you very much to be here and help me and to answer my question. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Carlos, thank you. Thank you very much to answer me. Until tomorrow.
Until tomorrow.